The story begins as Detective Sergeant Mare gets a call early in the morning from Miss Carroll. Feeling cold and annoyed, she goes to see her. Miss Carroll talks about a strange man she saw lurking near her house. She describes him as looking like a ferret, wearing a hooded jacket,
He was wearing a hooded sweatshirt, so it was hard to get much of his face.
and watching her granddaughter from across the garden. Mare says she will check into it at the station and leaves. She ignores a call from Frank and heads to the station. There, she sees people clapping. The applause is not for her, but for Officer Trammell, a new recruit who has joined their team. The chief calls Mare into his office. She watches a press conference on TV. A woman named Dawn, who is her age, speaks about her missing daughter. Dawn is also battling cancer. The girl has been missing for a year, and Mare and her team have not been able to find her.
And the police aren't doing anything. They don't care. That's why we're here.
Mare and the chief talk about the case. The chief admits that the girl's history with drugs and prostitution makes finding her difficult. He also tells Mare that the higher-ups want to bring in an outsider to take a new look at the case. Mare feels frustrated but says nothing. Later, Mare goes to a pet shop to buy a tank for her grandson's turtle. She does not want to spend too much money. The shop clerk tries to sell her an expensive tank, but Mare chooses a cheaper one for $40 and leaves. At the shop, Mare gets a call about a burglary at Bethy's house. Bethy says her brother Freddy has a drug problem. He broke into her house and stole from her trophy case. Mare finds Freddy and chases him, but she twists her ankle during the chase. She manages to stop him and calm him down. She sets him up at a shelter and tells Officer Trammell how to help him. Freddy's life is sad, as his house is in bad shape and it has no heat. Still, there are photos of him and his children on the fridge, showing a time when his life was better. For Mare, dealing with Freddy's situation feels like another routine day, but later, something unexpected happens. She has been avoiding calls from her ex-husband, Frank, all day. When she gets home, her mother, Helen, tells her why he was calling. Frank and his girlfriend, Faye, are now engaged.
And you didn't say anything?
It wasn't my secret to share.
They are hosting a party that night to celebrate. Everyone in the family is going, including Mare's teenage daughter, Siobhan. Mare decides not to attend. Instead, she heads to her old high school for a ceremony. 25 years ago, Mare made a game-winning shot in an important basketball match. This made her a local hero. The people of Easttown are gathering to honor her and her old teammates, including Bethy and Dawn. Mare feels uncomfortable as she limps onto the court to the crowd's cheers. Afterward, the celebration continues at a local bar, but Mare still seems uneasy. She ends up talking to Richard, a man new to town. Mare learns that he is a published author and is guest lecturing at the college. He is not from Easttown, which seems to appeal to her. Later, Mare and Richard end up having love together. Afterward, she tells him about being a grandmother and asks if she bangs like a grandmother. Richard responds like a very hot grandmother. Meanwhile, Erin visits a friend and shares a secret. She admits that she felt lonely and sent some flirty texts to her ex, Dylan. Later, Erin goes to the woods to meet someone she believes is her online date. The meeting is a cruel prank. Brianna, Dylan's current girlfriend, has catfished Erin as revenge for texting him. Brianna confronts Erin and beats her up while a group of friends watches and records the scene on their phones. The violence stops when Siobhan, who happens to be nearby, steps in and breaks it up. Erin, bruised and hurt, walks away alone into the woods. Mare returns home late. Her mother teases her about staying out, but Mare ignores it. She climbs into bed next to her grandson. He tells her that he has decided to name his turtle Kevin, after his father, who is also Mare's deceased son. In the early morning, Easttown begins to wake up. People start their daily routines. Erin, however, does not. Her lifeless, naked body lies in a creek nearby. Mare wakes up from a restless sleep. She briefly sees a haunting vision of her son, Kevin. Before she can process it, her phone rings with terrible news. The small town is shaken by the death of one of its residents. Mare drives to the scene to investigate and records the grim details up close. A jogger came across Erin early in the morning, which happens to be the person who called in the death. Mare examines the body and determines that Erin has been there for some time. The injuries suggest the attacker was face-to-face with her. Because of the seriousness of the case, Mare is assigned a partner named Colin Zabel. Before Colin arrives, Mare orders the detectives to perform a grid search. They search for anything unusual in the area, but find nothing significant for now. Mare, along with Bill and John, goes to Kenny's house to inform him about Erin. Kenny reacts with shock and anger. He yells and knocks things over in his grief.
That's my daughter!
Once Kenny calms down slightly, Mare asks who might have hurt Erin. Kenny names Dylan, Erin's ex. He says Dylan resented Erin because of the baby and seems like the most likely suspect. Kenny also says he was at home that night and has an alibi. Mare interviews Dylan next. Dylan admits that his relationship with Erin was tense but denies speaking to her that night.
No, she came on her own.
Do you talk to her?
No.
Mare is not convinced. Dylan becomes nervous when Brianna calls him during the interview. He ignores the call and avoids answering. Eventually, he leaves. Back at the station, Mare meets Colin for the first time. She greets him coldly and does not shake his hand. Soon after, they receive new evidence. A video from the previous night surfaces. It shows Brianna attacking Aaron. With Siobhan involved, Mare quickly focuses on the case.
Who's that?
That's Siobhan. Mare's daughter.
She calls her daughter, leaving a message and urging her to respond soon. Feeling stressed and impatient, Mare finally agrees to let Colin join her investigation. They go to the restaurant where Brianna works as a waitress. Mare arrests Brianna in the middle of her shift, while Colin watches, surprised. At the station, Mare questions Brianna about the assault. Brianna avoids answering and repeatedly asks for a lawyer.
Lawyer. I said I want a fucking lawyer. You deaf?
At one point, she makes a cruel comment about Mare's son, saying she is not surprised he took his own life. The remark shakes Mare, but also pushes her to focus even harder on the case. Mare checks in with Frank next. He casually mentions that Aaron's home life was difficult. Mare becomes suspicious and asks how he knows this, but Frank dismisses her concern, calling it intuition. When Mare gets home, she questions Siobhan about the night Aaron died. Siobhan explains that she offered Aaron a ride home, but Aaron refused. Instead, Aaron walked off alone into the woods. Mare is upset by this, but chooses not to press Siobhan further for now.
That's everything. That's nothing else I need to know.
Mare visits Drew's school, where she is advised to take him to a neurologist. The doctor also suggests that Mare should see a therapist to address her son's death. Mare refuses and goes back to the station instead. At the station, Mare and Colin decide to start fresh. They exchange polite greetings and shake hands this time. Together, they question the kids from the party about that night. None of them heard a gunshot. However, one boy remembers Aaron's bike being missing, which seems important. Mare and Colin finish reviewing over 40 witness statements. They begin piecing together small details from that night, hoping to uncover the truth. Tony is upset by the ongoing investigation. Just when Mare is about to leave with Richard, Tony confronts her. Mare remains firm, but it becomes clear the investigation is stirring tensions in the community. Things don't improve for Mare at Richard's book signing. She struggles with her own frustrations while Richard entertains a group of women. Feeling uncomfortable, Mare ends up stuffing food into the sofa out of boredom. Later, Richard approaches her and apologizes for the situation.
You know, I'm standing there. I'm
sorry.
Come on,
I'm sorry, Mare.
That same evening, Dylan leaves to pick up some items from the store. When he returns to his truck, he finds Kenny waiting inside with a gun. Kenny forces Dylan to drive and then shoots him in the back. At home, Jess is in tears as she talks to her mother. She reveals that Aaron told her a secret and made her promise not to share it with anyone. Jess and her mother decide to visit Lori. There, Jess reveals the shocking truth. Dylan is not the real father of Aaron's baby. She says the father is Frank Sheehan. Mare and Colin continue working together to figure out what happened to Aaron. The coroner provides new details about her death. Aaron was killed between 12 a.m. and 2 a.m. There is no sign of sexual abuse, but her body shows multiple bruises. These are consistent with a severe beating. The missing finger appears to be related to a bullet wound. Mare and Colin review what they know so far. They realize Aaron was killed in one location and then moved to the woods. This seems like an attempt to mislead the investigation. Meanwhile, Johnny finds Kenny passed out near the river. Kenny brags that he has killed Dylan. This leads to his arrest, and he confesses at the station. However, it turns out Dylan is still alive. He is badly injured and unlikely to walk again. If he hadn't been taken to the hospital in time, he would not have survived. At home, Mare gets into a heated argument with her mother. Both of them shout over each other. The situation becomes even worse when Lori arrives with new information. She confirms what she heard earlier. Frank might be the father of Aaron's baby.
She thinks the real father is Frank.
What?
Furious, Mare storms over to Frank's house. She bursts into his living room and confronts him. She brings up Aaron and accuses him of lying. She demands answers about the rumor that he is the father of Aaron's child. Frank firmly denies having love with Aaron. He explains that he helped her buy baby supplies because he felt sorry for her after Kevin's death. He wanted to support her in any way he could.
I felt sorry for her, so I bought her a few things.
Mare considers the small-town atmosphere and the likelihood of rumors spreading easily. To confirm the truth, she informs Dylan's parents that she will run a DNA test to be certain. Frank later goes to the police station with Faye to give his statement. He officially denies killing Aaron. After providing a DNA sample, he is allowed to leave. Mare continues the investigation by examining Aaron's cell phone records. She finds that Aaron's last call was to Deacon Mark Burton, a priest at St. Michael's Parish. When Mare and Colin question the Deacon, his behavior raises suspicion. He admits he has been alone with Erin before. He mentions his connection to her through the youth club, but does not explain why Erin called him at 11 p.m. that night. It seems strange, especially since he never informed the police about any of this. Despite this, he agrees to hand over his cell phone for further examination. Mare and Colin review evidence near the park. Mare believes there is a bullet somewhere in the area. She insists on bringing in county dogs to search for any fragments within the half-mile radius. Although the dogs do not find anything unusual, Mare discovers something significant herself. Mare discovers a ricochet mark on the building.
You see that nick?
Yeah.
It's a ricochet.
By following the trajectory, she finds the bullet lodged in a tree. This explains why the dogs could not locate it during the search. The list of suspects narrows to Dylan and Kenny. Kenny owns a firearm and has already shown he is capable of using it. Deacon Mark remains a suspect, but is not the main focus for now. This might be a mistake. Later that night, the Deacon is seen throwing Erin's bike into the river. At the end of the day, Mare and Colin both end up at the same bar. Colin is drunk and dealing with personal problems. He shares details about his ex, and Mare offers a brief apology. Colin awkwardly compliments Mare, calling her a good mother, and then tries to flirt with her. Mare shuts him down immediately. She has no intention of mixing work with her personal life. Thankfully, Colin's friends arrive and take him home. The next morning, Mare meets with the chief and receives serious news. The chief reveals that Mare, in a drunken state, planted evidence on Carrie Layden. As a result, Mare is placed on administrative leave and ordered to attend counseling. She is forced to hand over her badge and gun. Mare watches helplessly as the chief drives away. Mare reaches her lowest point and stays in bed until late in the day. When she finally gets up, it's just to smoke a cigarette and meet with Lori. Mare hasn't told her family about her suspension yet and fears their reaction. Lori refuses to let Mare isolate herself and promises to support her. Eventually, Mare informs her family about the suspension.
That was stupid. You're a complete smack-the-ass for doing that.
She agrees to the chief's request to attend therapy. At her first session, Mare warns the therapist not to expect any major changes. She continues to share her thoughts, but her attitude remains guarded. After therapy, Mare runs into Richard. He notices how much Mare is dealing with and offers support. He suggests they go out together for his birthday. At the station, Zabel is disappointed that Mare is no longer working on the case. However, he shifts his focus when new DNA results arrive. The results reveal that neither Frank Sheehan nor Dylan is the father of Erin's baby. The identity of the father remains unknown. Zabel decides to question Deacon Mark, who has been avoiding calls for days. Suspicion grows when Zabel learns that the Deacon was previously accused of sexual misconduct at another parish. During the questioning, Deacon Mark is uncooperative and eventually drives away. Meanwhile, Dawn receives a call from an unknown person. The caller claims Katie is still alive but demands $5,000. After considering her options, Dawn decides to take money from her workplace cash register to meet the demand. Carrie returns Drew after spending the night with him. Once he runs upstairs, Carrie confronts Mare about the drugs. She tells Mare she knows the truth and, with tears streaming down her face, asks her to stop. Exhausted, Carrie walks away, leaving Mare in silence. That evening, Mare visits Zabel's house. After an awkward encounter with his mother, they sit down to discuss the case. Hauser, another officer, believes the cases are not connected. Mare disagrees. She suggests the cases may involve prostitution. Mare seems confident in her theory, based on her experience. Mare and Zabel visit Jess, who reveals that Erin created an account on an escort site called Side Door. Erin wanted to save money for ear surgery. Jace claimed Erin never gets together with clients, but it is unclear if that is true.
Even one of those guys who messaged her.
No, I'm sure.
Mare believes Erin's journals might hold important clues. She decides to search for them. At the same time, she tells Zabel to contact Side Door to gather details about accounts that interacted with Erin. She is convinced this line of investigation could uncover more answers. Back at home, more family drama unfolds. After Siobhan and Becca break up, Becca shows up at Mare's house to wait for her. However, Siobhan returns home with a date and begins kissing her in front of Becca. Upset, Becca screams and storms out. In her rush, she accidentally hits Mare's mother in the head with the door. This incident leads to the police getting involved. Mare's mother is taken to the hospital for a checkup, and Mare accompanies her to ensure everything is fine. Later, Mare brings her mother back home safely. Just as things settle down, Mare receives news of a third missing person. The new victim is 23-year-old Missy Sager. Elsewhere, Dawn goes to meet the caller who claimed Katie is alive. The meeting turns violent, and it is revealed the caller is Freddy. He was scamming her to get money. Devastated, Dawn returns home. Missy Sager, meanwhile, is locked in a small room at Benny's. She pounds on the door, desperate to escape.
No one can hear you in here.
From the distance, another voice tells her to stop. It is Katie Bailey, alive and trapped in the same place. A car crash knocks down a power pole and a transformer. The transformer sparks, cutting electricity across the town. Mare is brushing her teeth before the power goes out. Drew yells for her, and Siobhan comforts him until Mare joins them. They search for flashlights together. In the kitchen, Helen admits only one flashlight works. Mare grabs the turtle to prevent it from making a mess. Frank Sheehan arrives with extra batteries. Meanwhile, Lori overhears John talking to Ryan about their secret. At the crash site, Officer Trammell inspects the car and finds blood inside. He checks the driver's pulse and is shocked when the driver's purse reveals her identity. The victim is Betty Carroll. Trammell calls it in and notifies EMS. At home, Siobhan asks Frank about his relationship with Faye. Frank says things aren't going well, but hopes they'll improve. He admits he doesn't ask Siobhan how she is often enough and realizes it's unfair to assume she is always okay. Siobhan shares that she has met someone new.
I met someone.
While searching for the turtle, Mare notices a project on Siobhan's computer. Curious, she shuts the door and watches it alone. The next day, Mare talks to her psychiatrist about Kevin's struggles with mental health. She admits he tried many medications. Some helped, but none solved the problem. Mare also talks about her family history. She says her father was depressed, but never diagnosed. When asked about her own mental health, Mare admits to periods of depression. She recalls feeling this way when Siobhan was born and Kevin was difficult. Mare says she handled it alone, not wanting to burden her mother. She also reveals her father killed himself when she was 13. Mare wonders if depression and suicide can be passed down. This fear makes her worry Drew might face the same struggles as her father and Kevin. Helen talks to John and Billy about the crash. Mare joins them, and they discuss how Betty suffered a heart attack, which caused the accident. Meanwhile, Siobhan and Anne spend time with Moira Ross. Anne tells Siobhan she watched her documentary and found it brave.
I thought it was beautiful, Siobhan. I was so moved. It was really brave.
She mentions her former media teacher, Meg Frawley, who now leads media studies at Cal Berkeley. Anne encourages Siobhan to reach out to Meg, even though her applications are already submitted. Mare and Lori talk about Moira's excitement to try on dresses. Helen puts Drew to bed, and Billy leaves to get more beers. Lori reveals they visited Kenny in prison. Kenny asked if they would consider taking DJ in with them. Mare is shocked, but Lori says they are thinking about it. They discuss whether Kenny ever hit Aaron. John doesn't think so. Mare learns Aaron stayed with Billy for a while 3 years ago. Billy says it happened after Aaron's mother died and Kenny was drinking heavily. He claims they wanted to protect her. Billy seems nervous and vague about how long she stayed.
I really don't remember. It was a long time ago.
He leaves quickly after making an excuse. Dylan talks to Brianna about DJ and their meeting with Child Youth Services. Dylan's parents want to keep DJ, but Dylan says it feels strange knowing DJ isn't his. Brianna says her lawyer thinks she can plead down to a misdemeanor. She also says she might attend beauty school instead of college. Brianna offers to support Dylan if he wants to talk, but Dylan brushes her off. Brianna brings up the night Aaron died, saying Dylan wasn't in bed or feeding DJ in the den. Dylan claims he might have been smoking outside, but Brianna doesn't believe him.
You weren't out here smoking either. Dylan, I walked around the whole house and you weren't anywhere.
She says she checked the house and couldn't find him. Dylan refuses to answer and tells her to leave. Elsewhere, Katie cares for Missy. She says she has been captive for about a year. She recalls the first few months as a blur. She mentions another girl, Hillary, who got pregnant and disappeared because the captor didn't like it. They hear footsteps and get nervous. Katie reassures Missy that the captor won't come on poker night.
Don't worry, he won't come for us tonight. Friday's his poker night.
A man enters, gives them mouth gags, and chains their waists and arms. Later, Mare meets Tammy for coffee. Tammy talks about being a grandmother and doing what she needs to pay rent. Mare shows her a picture of Katie. Tammy admits she spoke to Katie about a year ago. Mare then shows her pictures of the other two girls. Tammy recognizes one and says she saw her near Harrah's on the river. Tammy also mentions seeing the same girl at Belmont and Caldwell. She agrees to ask around and spread the word. At school, Moira gets bullied by another student. A boy throws food at her while Ryan watches. Ryan reacts by hitting the boy with his lunch tray. Lori is called to pick Ryan up and tries to figure out what is going on. She asks if it has to do with Ryan's father. Ryan avoids answering and runs from the car. Lori catches up and asks if John is doing it again. Ryan confirms it involves the same woman as before. Later, Mare and Helen attend an event honoring Betty Carroll. Helen asks if Mare has spoken to Frank recently. She mentions Karen's daughter works at the Springton Inn. She also notes that Faye didn't show up to check out the inn's wedding reception hall as planned. During the event, Glenn Carroll interrupts to confess he feels guilty about having an affair with Helen Fahey.
I had an affair with Helen Fahey.
Later, in the car, Mare laughs about it and questions Helen. That evening, Mare gets ready for her date with Colin Zabel. Colin picks her up, and they drive off. Colin updates her on the case. He says he interviewed 3 people who messaged Aaron on Side Door, all of whom had solid alibis. He also mentions that the ballistics report on the park bullet will be ready Monday. Colin tries to change the topic to something else for a while.
Can we please talk about something else?
Yeah, okay. All right, sure.
Meanwhile, Helen and Carrie give Drew a bath. Helen advises Carrie to prepare for getting custody of Drew. She warns Carrie not to shut everyone out of Drew's life. Back in the car, Colin tells Mare he is trying to be more adventurous with food. Mare shifts the conversation back to the case. She mentions Hillary Cassell, a girl from New Jersey who went missing a few years ago. Hillary's case is similar to Missy and Katie's. Mare also brings up a detective in Melville named Jimmy Miller. Colin confronts Mare about not telling him she visited Deacon Mark's previous parish. Mare claims she didn't share it because the deacon didn't have new information. She says the archdiocese already interviewed him. Colin reveals he went to the parish himself to question the deacon. He expresses frustration, feeling Mare is hiding things while he is being open with her. Mare insists she is helping him, but Colin doubts her intentions. He apologizes and admits his mother told him Mare is only going out with him to stay close to the case. Colin hopes Mare will deny this, but she doesn't, and leaves without responding. Mare returns home and spends time with Drew. She thinks about Kevin, recalling moments of him yelling at her. The next day, she attends another therapy session with Gail. Jess Riley gets into a car with Dylan and his friend. Dylan demands to know what she told the detectives. Jess mentions the journals and says the detective asked about a necklace. She insists she didn't say anything as Dylan instructed. The group goes to Aaron's place. Jess shows them a hiding spot and they find Aaron's diaries. Dylan discovers an envelope containing money for DJ's ear surgery. He takes the money and reminds Jess they agreed not to read the diaries. Jess secretly takes a page from the journal and hides it in her pocket before Dylan forces her to burn the rest. That night, Mare notices a prowler while driving. She stops the car and chases them with a flashlight. She follows them into a house and pushes them down the stairs. She realizes it is Dennis and stops. Dennis is taken to the hospital. Chief Carter speaks to Dennis's wife, who says he has dementia. She scolds Mare for suspecting him. The chief angrily tells Mare to go home.
Don't play that shit with me. Now take your ass home.
Elsewhere, Mark Burton picks up an order for St. Michael's at a pub. Local kids harass him, accusing him of past crimes.
Fuck you!
Mark later washes blood from his face at home. Dan tries to help, but Mark refuses. Mark insists Dan should not call the police.
We need to call the police.
No, Dan, no.
Mark confesses he was with Erin the night she died. He says he picked her up, put her bike in his trunk, and planned to take her home. Erin received a message asking her to go to Brandywine Park. Mark dropped her off there but tried to convince her to leave. Erin became upset and stormed off. Mark didn't go to the police because of his past accusations. To cover his tracks, he threw Erin's bike into the river. The next morning, Colin talks to his mother about Mare's suspension. She warns him to be careful. Colin responds that being careful hasn't helped him in life. Mare waits outside for him. When he joins her, she thanks him for coming. Later, Allie describes an encounter by the riverfront last April. She needed money and got into a man's car. He seemed normal and parked near the stadium. When she got into the back seat to undress, he tried to choke her. She fought back, hit him, and ran away. Allie describes the man as white, with a beard and smoking Winston cigarettes. She thinks he was driving a blue work van.
It was a van. It was blue.
She gives them part of the license plate. Colin calls it in and is told it will take 2 hours to check. Mare apologizes for her comments the other night, but Colin brushes it off. Colin shares a story about a previous case. He admits he didn't solve it alone. A drunk private investigator had left behind files that helped him piece the case together. Colin admits he wanted to do something remarkable. Mare opens up about planting drugs in Carrie's car and says doing something great is overrated. Colin receives a call with addresses for 7 blue vans. Before knocking on doors, he kisses Mare and tells her she doesn't know what he really wants. They visit several locations before reaching Wayne Potts's house. Wayne confirms the van is his and invites them inside. Mare notices a Benny's Tavern sign. The music is loud, so they ask Wayne to turn it down. Wayne steps away, and Colin notices a pack of Winston cigarettes on the table. He points it out to Mare, who admits she doesn't have her gun but reminds him he does. Wayne turns off the music but grabs a gun. He talks about the bar, saying it belonged to his uncle. Katie hears voices and starts pulling on pipes to get attention. Missy helps her. Mare notices a security camera and asks Wayne about it. He claims he lives alone.
Just me. All by my lonesome.
Suddenly, Wayne pulls out his gun and shoots Colin. Mare runs, cutting herself while escaping. Mare hides and finds the girls. She tries to free them and calls 911 for help. Wayne checks the cameras and sees where Mare is hiding. Mare spots the body of Colin and his gun below her. Wayne fires at her but misses. Mare fights back with a piece of metal, injuring Wayne. Wayne chases her downstairs. Mare grabs the gun and shoots Wayne, killing him. She collapses as police cars arrive outside. Colin's death weighs heavily on everyone. Mare wakes up in the hospital with her family gathered around her. They check on her, showing their concern. In the midst of the grief, there is a small moment of happiness. Katie is reunited with her mother, Dawn. The abduction storyline comes to an end. The reunion is emotional and provides a brief relief before the focus shifts back to Aaron's case. Aaron's bike is found in the lake, adding a new piece to the puzzle. Combined with Father Dan revealing Deacon Mark's actions that night, the Deacon becomes the main suspect. Mare returns home and talks to Lori, who suspects John is having an affair. Lori admits she knows the truth, but says she cannot bring herself to leave him. John claims the affair has ended, but Lori still feels trapped. Mare decides to visit Colin's mother. She speaks highly of Colin, praising his work as a detective. However, her words are not well received. Colin's mother slaps Mare and blames her for his death. She forbids Mare from returning to their home. The next day, Mare goes to the station and talks to the chief. He confirms that Wayne Potts did not kill Aaron. Wayne was in Altoona visiting his mother the weekend Aaron was murdered. The chief also states that the two cases are not connected. With Hauser out, the chief gives Mare her badge back and places her in charge of Aaron's case again. Mare questions Dylan, trying to determine if he could be responsible. Dylan senses Mare is closing in on him. He asks for a lawyer, which only makes him appear more suspicious.
I think I want a lawyer.
That's smart.
Mare feels herself slipping and goes to therapy. She admits her struggles and opens up about what happened to her son. She describes finding Kevin in the attic, hanging from the rafters. It is a painful and emotional revelation. Mare reveals that she still lives in the same house where it happened. She has not been able to step into the attic since that day. The weight of these memories continues to haunt her.
Have you been able to go back up to the attic?
No.
Mare drives home but is stopped by Beth, who flags down her car and asks for help. Beth explains that she hasn't been able to reach Freddy for 3 days. Mare agrees to check it out. She breaks into Freddy's place and finds him dead. Next to his body, she discovers a bag containing Aaron's clothes. The discovery is another emotional blow for Mare. Later, she returns home and finds Siobhan drunk. Mare sits with her, and Siobhan confesses her resentment. She says she hates Mare for being the one who found Kevin after his death. Mare holds her daughter as she cries and apologizes. The moment is deeply emotional, but ends abruptly as the story moves forward. Meanwhile, John's father has a serious conversation with him. He reveals that he found Bill in the laundry room that night, covered in blood. The timing aligns with Aaron's murder, making Bill a strong suspect. Later, Bill admits his involvement to John. John speaks with Lori and insists they need to keep this information from Mare.
We gotta do everything we can to keep this from her.
Elsewhere, Dylan approaches Jess while she is walking. He confronts her about the journals and claims she is tied to him and Aaron forever. Dylan chases Jess, grabbing her while she hides. He holds a gun to her face and threatens her. He tells her to stay quiet or risk ending up like Aaron. At the same time, Carrie falls asleep while Drew is in the bath. She wakes up and finds him face down in the water. Drew is just playing, but the sight shocks Carrie. She breathes heavily, realizing how dangerous the situation could have been. Later, John and Billy pack their things for a fishing trip. Billy notices a gun hidden in John's gear but doesn't say anything. While they are away, Mare visits Lori. Mare shares her growing suspicions about Aaron's case. Lori finally breaks down and tells the truth.
The night that Aaron was murdered, that Billy came home covered in blood.
She reveals that Billy killed Aaron. Aaron had threatened to expose Billy as DJ's father, and he panicked. Mare immediately heads to the fishing lake to stop Billy and John. At the same time, Jess visits Carter at the station. She shows him a photo, but its contents are not revealed. The photo shocks Carter, and he quickly orders his team to call Mare right away.
Get Mare on the phone.
Jess admits she burned Aaron's journals. She explains she believed this was what Aaron would have wanted and thought it was the best way to honor her friend. Down by the docks, John points the gun at Billy. He hesitates, struggling with whether to pull the trigger. The two brothers wrestle, with Billy begging John to shoot him. Mare arrives just in time, distracting them before John can fire. She steps in and separates the brothers, ending their fight. Back at the station, Mare is shown the photo Jess brought in earlier. The image reveals Aaron and John together, suggesting a close relationship. Mare prepares for the next steps by using a hairdryer to dry her cast before interviewing the suspects. John confesses that Aaron called him to the woods that night. She was upset and demanded money for DJ's ear surgery. Before John faces imprisonment, he asks Lori to take care of DJ. Lori reluctantly agrees, visibly burdened by the situation. She later arranges for DJ's ear surgery, trying to make the best of the circumstances. Mare finds a sense of resolution with Siobhan. She supports her decision to go to college, allowing her to move forward with her life. In a heartfelt moment, Siobhan expresses that Easttown is a better place with Mare staying there.
You love being in Easttown. It's a better place because you're here.
Carrie starts using drugs again. She tearfully admits she only did it to stay awake, referencing the bath incident with Drew. Because of this relapse, Mare retains custody of Drew. However, the victory feels hollow. Mare acknowledges that Carrie loved her son and is struggling deeply. Mare's relationship with Frank also improves. She is no longer as hostile as she was earlier in the story. Sitting with Helen, Mare listens as her mother admits she directed much of her anger toward Mare in the past. Helen says she has forgiven herself for it. She urges Mare to forgive herself for what happened to Kevin. Helen starts crying as she says this, showing her own pain. The healing continues during Frank and Faye's wedding. Siobhan sings at the event, and Mare causes no drama. She even dances with Richard. Despite the joyful moment, there is a bittersweet feeling. Richard announces he has accepted a 1-year contract at another college. Before he leaves, Mare catches up with him to say goodbye. He tells her she is one of the best things to happen to him and promises to return. They share a tender, passionate kiss before parting ways. With the case seemingly closed, Glenn Carroll casually tells Mare about items going missing from his shed. He mentions his Colt Special pistol, which disappeared and reappeared days later with 2 rounds missing. Mare realizes this is the same weapon used to kill Aaron. Glenn explains that only 2 people had access to the shed, himself and Ryan Ross. Mare quickly checks the CCTV footage. She sees Ryan leaving the shed dressed in dark clothes. The realization shakes her. She heads to the high school and observes Ryan rushing home. Knowing he is the real suspect, Mare calls the station, her voice breaking with emotion. It becomes clear that John took the blame for his son. This explains why John couldn't describe the gun used in the murder. Mare, along with other officers, goes to Laurie's house to arrest Ryan. At the station, Ryan tells the true story of what happened that night. He knew about his father's affair with Aaron. Ryan made John promise to end things with her, but that night, he overheard John on the phone with Aaron. Ryan used John's phone to send a message to Aaron pretending to be his father. He then took the gun and went to the park to meet her. Ryan only wanted to scare Aaron. However, a struggle over the gun led to several shots being fired, one of which killed her. This explains the bullet marks on the wall and the ricochet Mare found earlier. Panicked, Ryan put the gun back in the shed, worried it would be traced to him. John and Billy covered up the crime to protect Ryan. John's affair with Sandra Elliott had no connection to the murder. Laurie is devastated by the truth. She directs her grief and anger at Mare, blaming her for what has happened. Mare gives her space but eventually visits her. Mare does not speak, choosing instead to hold Laurie and let her release her grief. Finally, Mare decides to confront her own fears. She goes up to the attic where Kevin died, facing the painful memories she has avoided for so long.